Five.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Outdoor Adventure Hour. This is number 4 for us now, episode number 4. And today we're actually going to be talking about boating and water sports, things you should know, things you shouldn't know, some of the experiences, and maybe some tips on how to get into those sports without losing your shirt. And with me is I'm Rob Lupo with Lupo Outdoors, and with me, as always, because we're partners here, is my buddy Jason over at the Rogue Banshee.
Hey, everybody. Yep. Lupo is we are like partners in crime on this thing.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's scary. You should see us during the day when we're at a day job together. It's pretty crazy, man. And looks like we got Krabby Turtle out there with us today. Hey, Krabby, what's going on, brother? And yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about boating, and I thought we'd switch things up from guns a little bit. And I'm not saying that guns aren't on boats, but I figure we'd have a little bit of fun with some water since it is summertime.
Summertime. So, let's start off with each of our favorite water sports. That involves either boats or flotation devices that would get you out there. Let me start off with fishing. I'm a fishing fanatic. Absolutely love fishing, and my fish of choice is bass fishing. I could bass fish every day and just be happy. But when you start talking about getting into a new sport, remember that when you're fishing and looking at the boats, not all boats are designed for bass fishing, and people have a tendency to be like, oh, that one's inexpensive, I'll buy that, or they'll get it off of Craigslist or something like that, and then they're like, this just isn't working. So if you're looking for a new fishing boat, make sure that it operates. If you go to Craigslist, and that it's functional and it doesn't have leaks. Oh my God, I've seen that dozens of times where like I put it in the water and then this fountain appeared out of nowhere, and and like
basically, if you're gonna buy a boat, go meet them at a lake and have them put it in the lake and take it for a test drive.
Exactly.
Because that's I've seen some crazy stuff out there. I mean, it's always fun when you see someone who found a water fountain in their boat. It's not a great time to find out you have a leak after you bought the boat, because then you're just not going. They're not going to fix it, man. You own it. You're stuck with it. But man, make sure you take that thing out for a test drive.
And also be very due diligent. Have a checklist and go through that checklist methodically.
Yes.
It's like boats and planes. Boats, planes, and homes are money pits. And it's like it's a black hole where your money goes and then just goes away forever. And
you know honestly, what boat stands for, don't you?
What?
Bring on another 1,000.
Bring on another 1,000. That's about right. Now, when you're talking about like homes, planes, and boats has the worst return on investment. So if you resell your boat, I've seen people pay like 30, 40,000 and then sell their boat for 10 or less. I had the opportunity to buy it was like a 32-foot sailboat with cabin, motor, and everything, and for $1,000. And it was easily a $50,000 sailboat when it was brand new. And there was really nothing wrong with it. It's just like trying to sell a boat's hard. People don't want to spend a lot of money because a lot of people are smart and understand that it's better if I can rent the boat. But when you're out boat shopping, so whether you're looking for boats, jet skis, pontoons, for out there and going out and for the parties. Be really, really due diligent about what you're looking at. Just because it's a good deal doesn't mean it's a good deal. Chances if it's
if it's a good deal, you want to be you want to be cautious of good deals with boats. We got DJ Play Nice out there. And,
hey DJ.
Yeah, man, it's welcome to the show. But anyways, it's and that's one of the things. Like for me, I was in the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and I've seen some scary crap out on the water. It's not fun. I mean, there's no. That's one of the things about boats is there's no inspections for boats, no mandatory inspections. And man, we've towed some boats in. We're just like, man, you guys are lucky you made it back. So yeah, definitely check it out. And then if you do have one of the cool things is out there is if you do have a Coast Guard auxiliary unit somewhere nearby, you can get a free safety inspection. Now it's not going to inspect the hull and stuff, but it's going to make sure you have all the gear that you need that to be safe on the water. But yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, definitely make sure you go get someone who knows what they're talking about. Because I've seen boats that were being sold that had like stress cracks in the hulls, and that is not a good thing. That means somebody slammed that boat down on something, and yeah, it's going to become a problem. And fixing fiberglass, I mean, fiberglass can be fixed, but man, it gets expensive.
It
gets really expensive.
Yeah, and because it has to be done right the first time,
Yeah.
So literally, if you're going to buy a used boat, meet the person at the lake, make sure it's out of the water, in the trailer, and inspect the hull, inspect everything, and then have them put it in the water, and then go out on the boat, check out how it drives. Does he have a problem starting it? And then just inspect everything you can. I've seen boats like my neighbor has a bass boat, but there's no motor. Well, the freaking motors cost a bloody fortune.
I mean, cost as much as the boat.
Just about. I mean, it's actually a better deal just to buy a brand new boat with a motor than it is to buy a used boat without one.
DJ Play Nice is talking about his only watercraft investment would be a canoe or a kayak. He's in Nebraska, so no coast. But believe it or not, DJ, there is probably a Coast Guard auxiliary unit. I'm in Montana here, and I was the flotilla commander for the unit here in Helena. It's hard to believe that there's Coast Guard in Montana, but yes, there is. But yeah, definitely. And we have the Missouri River here as well. This is actually the Missouri River actually starts up here in Montana. But the river and lake culture here, that's what we have. That's exactly what we have up here. And that's cool. I love actually canoes and kayaks. I know that that guy right there likes them too, because they're cool as hell, man. There's just something about getting out there and just kind of rowing around, just kind of putting around. But also you want to make sure you're being safe with those too.
Yeah. So I love kayaks. And once again, inspect the hull if you're going to buy a used one, but kayaks aren't horribly expensive unless you start getting into like, Hobie and all these other ones that have like motors and, they propel you by like bicycling on the pads. It's very, very cool. I have a fishing kayak, so it's very stable. And then it's got a lanyard you use to help you stand up on it. And it's a sit on top, because you have sit on tops and you have sit insides. If you go a sit inside kayak, you got to be really careful, because you need to know how to get out of the kayak if you roll over, or it's not going to end well. The sit on top kayaks, it flips over, you're just in the water. But you know, we have to, you know, you have to go into that whole safety thing. I have a fishing a life vest that actually doubles as like a fishing lure vest, so I can, you know,
That's
pull
pretty
out
cool.
lures and all that stuff. So it has all that neat stuff. It's like a regular fishing vest, but it sits up high. So if I go in the water, I'm good. I'm good with that. And you got to consider that. I see a lot of people go out and they have no life vest at all. Well, if something happens, you get smashed, and for some reason you get knocked out, or you're barely conscious, and you go in the water without that vest, you're in deep trouble.
Yeah, because
Deep trouble.
and that's one of the things that people don't understand about like even modern life vest designs. Most of them are designed to actually roll you over if you are unconscious, so that
Yep.
way your face is up. A lot of the old ones didn't do that. A lot of the old ones they were the K-pop, so we would see some on boat, you know, on inspections that you'd squeeze them, you'd hear air coming out. You're like, that's not good, man. That's going to rocket you right to the bottom of the lake. But
Yep.
yeah, there's a very important design features of those life vests, because even like the self-inflating ones. One thing that was really interesting when I started playing with the self-inflating ones is it takes a second or two for that thing to actually, that little capsule in there, to dissolve and set off the CO2 cartridge. And you're underwater and you're like, is this thing gonna? And all of a sudden you go rocketing up to the top. It's kind of weird, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's important to keep your it's important to keep your head above the water when you're in the lake, and you want to make sure that you have a life vest designed to do that.
Yep. Exactly. The other thing that people do take in consideration is transportation of their devices. If you've never driven a boat on a trailer, practice, just go rent like a U-Haul trailer and practice backing that in to like a parking spot at a mall or something. You need to
Yeah,
understand, you know, and create a checklist in your head when to put the emergency brake on so I can release the boat. Because there's nothing worse than stepping out and all of a sudden there goes your boat and your car into the
okay.
lake. I've seen that more times than I wish. But also, don't go out and just buy something. Like jet skis is a perfect example. People are like, I want jet skis, and they'll go out and buy a jet ski without ever renting one or trying them out.
Yeah,
And if you've
yeah,
never driven a jet ski, they don't operate like a regular boat. You have to be producing power to turn. I see people sit there and turn the power off and then try to turn, and they'll turn
yeah.
and
There's no
nothing's
rudder. I
happening.
mean,
They just keep going at a high speed, you know?
even with a an outboard or an IO drive, you get some steering because you have that outboard out there and it acts like a rudder. It doesn't give you a lot of control, but yeah, I've seen that where people are like, I can't turn. They crash into the dock with it. By the way, Ron Wayne just subscribed to you, Lupo. There.
Oh,
Um,
hey,
so
thanks, Ron.
so
Appreciate it.
the other thing with trailers is not only practicing the you know, with the trailer, learning how to back up and things like that. One of the things is that when you get to the lake, even after you get all that stuff kind of figured out and you're ready to go in the water, it's an important thing is to, when you get to the lake, you pull your boat there, to let your trailer cool down before you back it into the water. Because what people don't realize is that those hubs, they're getting hot. The bearings in there are getting hot, and now you back into the lake. You just took those bearings and submerged them in water, even though they got like caps on them to protect them. You got grease in there. You have that sudden cooling of the bearings. If you see people that were pulling a boat and they're pulled by the side of the road because they have a wheel that has failed, it's not a flat tire. The bearing actually failed while they were driving.
Yep.
typically because the bearings aren't being taken care of, and
Now you
you're
can track your
just
bearing
submerging
by
them.
submerging it in cold water
Yeah. So it's
easily.
one of those things is you gotta think it out a little bit to give your trailer a little bit of time to cool down before you back that boat into the trailer. So the next time you're going to back that trailer in, and it's busy at the dock with a bunch of other people, just actually think that, hey, this is pretty cool, because then your trailer bearings are actually cooling down as you're getting
Yeah.
everything prepped up. So that's actually a bonus, not a hindrance.
And then remember boating and trailer etiquette. So when you're going to go launch your boat, there's etiquette out there.
Yeah.
You need to know where the line is. You need to know how to get in line. And I'll tell you right now, people who have been waiting in line, if you're in front of them and you have no idea how to launch your boat and you're taking up time, they get so
They
mad.
get egg.
Like
I remember,
really, really mad. Like I was
and people will help you. They'll
oh,
help
they
you get your
will.
boat
They
in
will
one.
absolutely help you. So sit there, so like if you're not really familiar how to do it and you want some help, just
Just
go
ask.
ask, go start and talk to somebody and ask them, say, hey, look, I've never really launched my boat before. Would you be willing to help me? But if you don't ask and you act like you know what you're doing, you're going to piss people off. I've seen people go storming down there. Would you just let me do it? You're
I
taking too long.
I remember we had this is when I lived in Maryland. The marina I was at for our boat, we actually had our boat in the slip in a marina, and I went down. It was a fish house, because there actually was a fish house right at this place at the time, and they had the dock master there running the fuel and all that stuff. And I remember going down to get some ice, and there was a really nice Scarab 3, so 30-foot, really high speed boat. And this guy just did not know what the hell he was doing. And the dock master's like, "Man, do you need help?" He's, "No, no, no, I got it, I got it, I got it." And the dock master's really trying to, because he's trying to keep the traffic moving on this thing. It's a busy day. And this guy ends up launching his boat with his outdrives down, and sheared off both the outdrives. It's a twin engine
Oh,
boat.
jeez.
And the thing starts sinking right there in the
That's
dock.
going to cost you a mortgage payment.
And that dock master was pissed, and he's like, "Get that piece of," he's yelling everything, all because the, the guy was offered help, and he just, no, 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 he's too proud. Just get some help, man. Especially on a busy day, get some help. People will help. It is amazing. It's funny because the boating world's a lot like the shooting world. Um, People love to talk. People love to help people out, um, and they love to just teach as well. So, yeah, just get help.
Yeah,
And it,
exactly.
and if you can help someone out, help them.
So let's talk about buying a boat. We talked a little bit about buying a used boat, and you have to be double probation, extra massive careful when you're doing that. Um, uh, so when you go to, like, if you do your research and research, that's everything. So if you're like, I want a boat. Now, some of the questions you have to ask yourself: do I want to take it into the salt water? Do I want to take it to freshwater, or do I want to do both? If you want to do freshwater only, that's a specific type of boat. If you want to do saltwater only, that's a different type of boat. And then if you want one that can go both freshwater and saltwater, there's a lot of cleaning involved. And I'll explain why. The reason why you have to, like, if it's in saltwater, going in and out of saltwater, that's not that big of a deal. Also, if it's more of an issue going in and out of freshwater in different lakes, because you have something called zebra mussels, and there are these really tiny invasive species,
It
and
looks like sand. They look like sand on your
they look
outside on your
exactly
boat.
like sand,
Yep.
and they're very, very tiny. So if you're in a lake that's infected with zebra mussels, and then you don't properly clean the hull of your boat, and I mean, you need to scrape it and clean it and disinfect it. before you go to another lake, you can infect that whole lake. And then
we
the
actually
problem
have
is
check
you'll drive
stations.
all the way out to that lake, and usually there's like a ranger there. He'll look at your hull. You can't come in. Go home.
We actually have check stations in Montana, and it's
Yeah.
not even by the lakes. You could be driving down the road, and all of a sudden you'll see a sign that's like all boats must enter. There's just these random check stations they do, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for that. They're looking for invasive species. It's not just the zebra mussel. There's weeds and stuff like that. I
Exactly.
think the milfoil. They are looking for this stuff because it's infected. And those zebra mussels actually came in from ballast of ships coming into port because they sucked it in from China and Taiwan and stuff like that. And then when they get to the States, they don't need that ballast. And they just, they dump the water out, and all those species are in there. But it's kind of a thing, especially it's a thing because it doesn't really affect you as a boater. What it does affect is the fish and the wildlife, the aquatic life in that water, and those things just take over, and then they'll kill fish, they'll kill the oxygen in the water, and it does a lot of really bad things. Which then you just screwed all the fishermen's well, because now you're killing off all the fish that they use for sport or eating or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, you're spot on. Other things that you need to be aware of is once you're in the water, you need to pay attention to the buoys. Like if the buoy says no wake zone, you can't go fast. You need to crawl through that area.
Yep.
If you have somebody fishing on a boat and you're on a jet ski, you need to be as far away from them as possible.
Yeah, stay away.
So if the land is here and the boat fishing here and he's casting to shore, bringing in, casting shore, and if you go in between there, one, you're gonna snag his line. Two, you're gonna scare away all the fish. Three, it's a big fine. You could be thrown off the lake and have to pay a massive fine. Have consideration.
Yeah. Hey, Tactical Foot, thanks for joining us.
So it's understand when there's wake, no wake, when you can go fast, when you can't go fast. You need to know. It's like if you don't know why there's a red light on one side and a green light on the other side of a bow, you got to know all of this before you go out on the water. Now, when you rent a boat, if you go to a lake and you rent it's like a rowboat with a small motor on it, so be it. You really don't need a whole lot of training with that. You're not going to go fast. No. And that's a great way to learn how to steer a boat. That's the first thing I did.
Because not only just steering it, is stopping a boat is different, because we're used to driving a car. When you stop, you hit the brakes, the car stops. Well, you're out in the boat, you pull the throttle back, you're still drifting.
Yeah.
So you got small boats like that. They're great to learn the basics on without spending a lot of money, especially if they're rentals. Because there's a lot of crap that there's a lot of art to boating, and you just got to know, how engines work, how the boat works, how the boat drifts. But yeah, renting the small boats, like you were saying, is amazing, because I wish we had done that when we got our first boat, because my father and I swear, man, we hit freaking everything when we got our first boat, because we didn't know.
Yep, you figure it out real quick though. You're like, oh, that's just going to cost me a lot of money right there. So now I hate to say this, but if you're not naturally a considerate person, don't go on the water.
Don't be a boater.
Let somebody else drive the boat, because when you're out on the water, consideration for other people is absolutely key. I've seen fishermen follow people back at the docks and get up to, start going fisticuffs. But here's the other thing. I literally seen this. I was back in California and we're out there, and he had these two kids on jet skis, and they were purposely targeting fishermen, right? So, if they're fishing out to the shore, especially the bass fishermen, they go zooming through and, scare the fish. And it's dangerous for the fishermen, because if they're on the edge of the boat and you go zooming by,
You could
you're
throw
going
them
to rock
overboard.
their boat and you can knock them into the water, and it could be potentially dangerous. So this one guy, what he does is whenever he respools his reels, he keeps the old fishing line and he creates this giant elongated like bird's nest of it. And if he's fishing in an area, he'll throw it out in front of him and it becomes invisible in the water. Now, if a jet skier goes zooming over that, the jet ski
It's gonna
will actually
suck it in.
suck it
Yeah,
right
the
up.
pulp's gonna suck it in.
The monofilament will melt and freeze the engine. That thing's gone. That's it.
Yeah.
So he headed out there, and these guys were zooming around, and he goes, "Don't do it." And they were like, and he goes, "Don't do it." And then went zooming through, boom, 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 and all of a sudden, both of the jet skis die on the
Just
spot.
die.
And he just pulls in his line, starts his motor,
Wait,
and these guys are stuck. So he goes, tells the warden, "There's two guys in the jet ski. Here's what happened, and this is what they did." And they had to be towed back in. And then they had to explain to their dad how both of them, by being idiots, just ruined two jet skis. I mean, those motors are gone. That monofilament melts and it gets inside the motor. There's no fixing that. Replacing the motors.
I remember one of the last times we were on the water when we had our boat here in Montana. My wife and I were coming back, and we tried getting off the water by noon because the drunks started showing up to the lake, and we're heading back to the marina, and I'm watching right off the shore. Someone jumps on a water ski and just comes hauling ass across the lake, and I'm sitting there watching him. And of course, he's coming from the right, and I'm like, he's got the right of way. And this guy comes in and goes right in front of us and does a 360. So I had to go pull back on the throttles and go in the full reverse to stop, to keep from running him over. I am yelling at this guy, right? So, and he's like giving me the bird and all that stuff. I'm like, dude, you just did this right in front of me. So he goes and takes off. So it's funny because I was the flotilla commander at the time for the auxiliary unit here. I remember picking up the radio and calling one of our boats, like, "Hey, you guys want to watch this guy coming off?" And I said the shore and all this stuff, and so they radioed back. They're like, "Okay, we'll check him out." And then so they went out and they talked to the guy. They went out to go talk to him about safety and stuff like that. Plus, they were trying to see if he was drunk. And they're talking about this incident, because I filled them in on the incident. The guy's like, "Well, who the hell is he? Maybe he shouldn't be on the water." And they start laughing. They go, "You realize that's our boss, right? He's been out in the ocean on boats, right? He knows his stuff, and he teaches boater safety." And it was so funny that he got so pissed off at me. Yes, he had the right of way, but what he did right in front of us was inappropriate, and he was just doing it to be an ass. Man, he had a really bad day in the water because the units we had in the water were watching him all day. So he had to be on his best behavior. But yeah, be a considerate person. But yeah, if you're on the jet ski, realize that, man, it's not a right to just go out there and just be an ass. Exactly. It doesn't even matter jet ski. But it just seems
have
to
a
be
great time, but don't be a jerk. That's the key to all of this, right? It's consideration will get you a long way, especially if you need help.
And I like what Ron Wayne says here. Always have a plan B and think of it like chess. Think 5 moves ahead. Absolutely.
Way to go, Ron.
That you can't sum it up enough with that, because that's the thing about water. Water's not quite like land when you're on a boat or when you're in a car or something like that. There's so many other things that can happen because we have potholes in, as you're driving. You might not see them till the last second, but if you're paying attention, you'll see them. The other thing you have with water, you might have an underwater log that you don't know about. There's all kinds of hazards under the water that you just can't see. So definitely think ahead.
Oh, without question. There's nothing worse than a boat traveling at a high speed, hitting a shallow
Like
bar
a
or
sandbar, yeah.
a log, and then that boat coming to a sudden stop, and then it's like flying people.
We have out in the one lake here. There's a bar that's out there, and God, it's every week we were pulling someone off of it because it's the Missouri River. There's no, this is the beginning of the Missouri River. There's no markings anywhere. Sometimes people take like old weightlifting weights and they would tie it to jugs and throw it onto the bar just to try to mark it somehow. But it's all unmarked waters. But yeah, it's we would pull people out off that thing all the time, and yeah, you want to be careful because conditions change really fast.
Mm-hmm. And so we were mentioning about being polite. One thing I wanted to add to that, when you go to another state, you really want to be polite because, so like, I'm in Florida, Rogue Banshees in Montana. So here in Florida, we have concealed carry, like many other states do, like they do in
Montana.
in Montana. But if you're hunting, fishing, or camping, you can open carry in Florida, which means you can have a rifle, a shotgun, or a holster on your hip with a firearm. And understand that if you're putting someone's life in danger because you think it's funny, that could be an issue. It could be
and that's no different than if I am concealed carrying and you try running me over with your car. I am allowed to defend myself if I'm carrying. The boat is the same thing. If you are going to threaten my life, under the laws, and I understand each state has different laws of self-defense, but here in Montana, I'm allowed to defend myself, and that might mean shooting you. So yeah, it's you.
So the reason why we have that specific law for like people who are fishing, and it's not just while you're fishing, it's going from like your vehicle to walking to where you're going to fish. While you're fishing and walking back, you're allowed to have an open carry. We have alligators. And while you're fishing, it's there's alligators. And if
what's funny, I think I would take my bears before your alligators any day of the week.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have a funny bear story about hunting in Montana
about alligators.
And I guess I'll tell it real quick. So I used to live in Montana too. I lived in Bozeman, Montana with my father. And my dad took me out grouse hunting. Grouse hunting is very popular in Montana.
Very big.
And we had his friend, Joe. And Joe doesn't like bears. He's scared to death of bears. And he goes, "There's no bears, right?" And my dad's like, "No, Joe, there's no bears. I've never seen a bear there. And if they're there, they stay away from us. Everything's fine. I've been hunting there for years, and I've never seen the bear." And all the drive up there, "You're sure there's no bears?" "Joe, there's no bears." "All right, fine. You're sure?" "Joe, there's no bears." "Okay, great." And we go and we're out hunting. And Joe's over by the car. He had walked back over to the car to get lunch or something like that. And I'm out with my dad. And I'm behind my dad. We're out there with our shotguns. And my dad's playing Almighty Hunter and stalking this grouse, or he thought he saw a grouse. We never did see it, by the way. And I'm sitting there and I'm behind him. I'm safely carrying. And I look over to my left. And there's this massive black bear And I'm looking at him and he's walking towards us. And I'm like, Dad. It's like, Robbie, shut up. I'm like, Dad. He goes, Robbie, quiet. Because I was a little kid, 10 years old. My name was Robbie and not Rob. And he goes, I'm going like, Dad. He goes, God damn it, Robbie. What? I said, a bear. He goes, oh shit, a bear. Yeah. And we're sitting there and it got up on its hind legs and looked at us. And I'm like, wow, a bear. And then it turned and started running, just took off, off in towards the woods. And I said, Dad, he goes, yeah. And I'm like, isn't the car in that direction? He goes, yeah. Isn't Joe at the car? And just before he could say, yeah, we hear this blood curdling scream. We go running over there. And Joe's like on his knees. He's going, bear, bear. My dad goes, Joe, are you okay? And he looks at him and he goes, you son of a bitch. You told me there was no bears. I want to go home right now. Oh my God. We didn't hear the end of it for weeks. And I mean, my dad and I'm in the front seat with my dad and my dad and I, we have these big grins on our face and we're trying so hard not to laugh because,
he's
and
pissed.
He's pissed. Like, the bear, you lied to me. And oh my God, I have tears running down my face because I'm trying not to laugh. That's our bear story. But that was the first time I saw a bear in the wild. And then my dad got a bear tag and we never saw a bear again.
Of course. Well, yeah. and it is kind of funny because that's kind of the thing is the second you get the hunting license, whatever you got the tag for, you don't see. I mean, that's it. That's the end of it.
Yep.
It's kind of like fishing too, right? I mean, you get the fishing license and there's no fish. They magically know. It's like it's like they can sense that license and they're just gone.
Well, it's like Kodiak bears up in Alaska, right? So you have to go into a lottery to get your ticket. And when you get the lottery, and it's a small fortune, you have to prepay for your tag. And they choose something like 25 a year, something ridiculous. I don't know, honestly, don't remember what it is right now. But you've already paid like $5,000 or something like that for the option of getting a tag. And if your number doesn't come up, you've lost that money. You don't get it back. It's a lottery. And then if they do like 25 tags, maybe 3 people actually see a Kodiak and beg a Kodiak. So then you're out that money too. But every year, tons of people sign up. It's that one opportunity. And then they use that money for, conservation to help protect areas and to
protect the Kodiak bear that you're out there hunting.
Yeah, well, there's areas you're not allowed to hunt. It's a refuge. It's like hunting in Africa for big game. People are like, oh my God, I can't believe they let people shoot this and that and that, and I can go into, we can talk about it on another episode, but all that money goes to preserve the land. So anyhow, that's my bear story, but we can get back to boats now.
Back to boats.
It's like
it's kind of funny.
Kitty, we haven't seen you for a while. Welcome.
Yeah, Vanessa Kitty's out there. Awesome. But yeah, it's just don't be, when you're on the water, don't be an ass. Just be respectful. And oh my God, do not get out there drunk. I've seen things as a first responder on the water that I can't unsee. And it is not pretty seeing a body that's been hit by a prop. It's not pretty, and it's really kind of sucks pulling people out of the water that's been hit by a prop. So, just think about things. And we were talking about life jackets earlier, and we we're talking about speed. The one thing that everybody's got life jackets on their boats, or they should. The one thing you want to think about is the life jacket appropriate? Now, I'm not just talking about size, you know, although I got a really funny story I'll go through. Um, but you got to think about this thing called speed rated. Like for the auxiliary, I had a speed rated life jacket, and what it is that if you're traveling 50 miles an hour, and for some reason you get ejected from the boat, you're hitting that water at 50 miles an hour. Some life jackets will not survive the impact.
Nope.
I think mine was rated to 75 miles an hour. Um, and it was, you want to think about that, because if you're out there putting around, the regular, foam life jackets that you have, perfectly fine. But if you're going to be going out there and you're going to be fast, you're going to wear your life jacket, make sure it's speed rated. They're going to be more expensive, like everything else, once you start getting into ratings. But trust me, you're going to want to make sure that you're doing that. Even if you're water skiing. I mean, think about water skiing. If you fall off your water skis and you're doing 30 miles an hour, you're hitting that water at 30 miles an hour.
Yep.
And yes, the water will give a little bit, but not a whole lot. It is kind of like hitting something at like 30 miles an hour. It's not going to be fun. But make sure you have speed rated jackets or life. Let's just say life jackets that are appropriate for what you're doing. The funny story, I was talking about life jackets. We're out in the water on patrol, and it was so funny because we're looking at this boat and we're laughing because this boat is full of people, right? And there's a placard on the boat that says how many people or how many pounds. Now understand that one person on that placard, one person is 150 pounds. I'm about 2 people. Right? So understand,
Are
just
you
because
though?
that placard, yeah, pretty close. Some weeks more than others. But we're looking at this boat and it's riding low and it thing's loaded. And we're just like, well, that's obviously over the placard and the weight. And so we pull up, right? We're going to do a safety check on them. And I remember talking to the coxswain and he was like, all right, so what's the deal? And he's like, well, he goes, there's no way they got enough life jackets. Let's do a life jacket check. Okay. Pull alongside. I'm like, all right, let's see life jackets. Because we're like, there's no way they have enough life jackets. And they keep pulling life jackets out of nowhere. We're just like, holy crap, how the hell? How do they have this many life jackets with that many people? And they're putting them on, right? And it was so funny as we're sitting there going, huh, all right, so we're gonna have to talk. We're gonna have to talk about the placarded weights and stuff like that. And then suddenly they came up short. The guy driving the boat, they ran out of adult life jackets and he had 2 children's life jackets.
Oh my God.
Right? So the coxswain yells
They're
over
like
and goes,
water wings, right?
yeah. So the coxswain yells over and goes, sir, I don't think any one of those are gonna fit you. So we're kindly talking through about the weights and how many people, and like you're overweight and you don't have enough life jackets. And they're like, so we should go back to the dock. And we're like, yeah. Yeah, you kind of want to get within this thing. And
that's a kitty, you're spot on. Thank you for the comments. You're
yes, it does.
spot on.
Absolutely does. It's yeah, because those things, there is a reason for those ratings, and you want to make sure you're staying within them because bad things can happen quickly if you're overweight on a boat.
With boating, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. Like I ride a motorcycle, and there's an old motorcycle saying, it's not if you're going to crash, it's when you're going to crash. When you drop your bike. And people are like, well, I'm really careful. No, you don't understand. It's not if. You will eventually. And on boating, it's not if you're going to fall in the water. It's not if you're going to have a problem on your boat. It's not if you're going to, crash. It's when. It's gonna
Yeah,
happen.
you're gonna hit something. And Vanessa Kilby, she's got another great point here. Don't forget about the temps of the waters that you're boating in.
Yep.
Absolutely, we used to have a fight in the auxiliary with. We're out of Sector Seattle, and we put in for our orders, and they're like, "Your water temperatures are 50 degrees," and they're like, "You need to wear your dry vest and stuff like that." And we're like, "The water temperature is 50 degrees." But it's going to be 93 out today. There's no way we're wearing our dry gear. We're going to overheat. And they're like, well, but you will, you'll go through hypothermia. Like, it's a small lake, man. We're not going to go through hypothermia. We'll be fine. But yes, think about the temperatures of water, especially you're out on the oceans, because hypothermia is a thing. It's pretty. It can get pretty bad.
And someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if it's somewhere around like in the 50s degrees or less, you have just a couple of minutes. You don't have long.
You don't have long.
You just have a few minutes before you go into hypothermia and go into shock and die.
And the funny thing is,
it's really, really cold. You have something like 2 minutes to get out of that water.
This is what we were training with. Because I was a trainer for search coordination execution, which is search and rescue. And one of the things that we were learning in those classes is you are lucky to die of hypothermia. You will more than likely drown before you die of hypothermia, because what will happen is as as that coldness goes in, your body starts to shut down. And you just can't, you're just not going to be able to start swimming. Fatigue hits you, and you will probably drown before you go hypothermic. The other thing is that just because you're still alive when you get rescued doesn't mean, reviving you is something else, because now we got to worry about the cold blood in your extremities going straight to your heart. And you could go into cardiac arrest. So cold weather and cold water is not something to be screwing around with.
Now,
you do want to take it
seriously. The flip
seriously.
side of that is you actually have a better chance of surviving a very cold water drowning than you do a warm water drowning. So if you drowned in warm water and you're underwater for 5 minutes, you have brain death. Now, if you drowned in like icy water, they've revived people who have been down there for up to 45 minutes. And then, down, under the water. But it's a trick. You have to, once they pull you out, they have to heat you from like the inside out. They have to heat up the organs first and then the extremities. And you actually have a really good chance of actually surviving without any brain damage. Because when you go into like a suspended animation, I know this all too well because that's what happened to my brother when he was 3. So I learned a lot about cold water survival and all that. But
it's funny because Lupo and I were just talking about this the other day.
Yeah.
Because I was talking about going through ice rescue training and learning and dealing with ice, and then. For me, when I went through that ice rescue training, my wife told me, she goes, "Are you nuts?" Because when I was in the 4th grade, I watched my dog fall through ice and drowned. And then that's actually when I heard the story about your brother. And I was like,
yeah,
well, okay, my story sucks compared to yours.
Yeah. I mean,
but yeah,
the paramedics did it wrong on the revival because it's critical that you revive them correctly. And he ended up with severe brain damage. Now, mind you, my brother's alive, but he's mentally about 2.5 years old now, and that's where he'll be for the rest of his life, but he's still alive, so, you gotta, thank God for small blessings at least. Right. But if they had revived him correctly, chances are he would have very little symptoms from the drowning.
Vanessa Kitty was talking about crossing a stream in Alaska. She was following others heading across, and she stepped 1 foot and went right up to her neck deep. Man, I bet you that was a shock. And the water temperature was just above 32. It's funny because there is this thing called cold water shock that we had studied in search and rescue, where it's when you get into that cold water, like I talk about hypothermia, you might die of drowning. There are case studies where people actually drown because of that cold water shock. They instantly breathe in because it's like, oh my God, you do that whole oh my God, or they're underwater and they just sucked in all the water. But yeah, you don't want to mess around with the cold water. It can go sideways really quick.
Exactly. So we got about 10 minutes left here. Let's talk about our favorite, or let's talk about what we would recommend someone buying if they're buying their first boat or their first watercraft. Let's talk about watercrafts. Personally, I would say canoe or kayak. It's going to be the least expensive. You can put motors on them if you wish, or you can just do people power. And probably one of the best. So I'm not paid by Sea Eagle, but I really like Sea Eagle boats. I have one that I really enjoy using, and it's an inflatable, and I use an electric inflator. But they have inflatable like kayaks and canoes. Their inflatable kayaks are just absolutely spectacular. They work really, really well. And they're not horribly expensive. You can get a 2-man inflatable kayak with all the gear, inflators, and everything for under $2,000. And you can find out real quick whether you enjoy it or not. And it's just a nice, inexpensive way. And it folds up and goes right into a trunk of a car. You don't need to put things on the roof and get it up there.
I like that idea, but some people are just not they're just not savvy on paddlecraft. I like what Vanessa Kitty said. Zodiacs have always been a favorite. I like Zodiacs, but I saw over the past couple of years, I saw at Costco, they have like a Zodiac type boat. It's like, gosh, I think it's like $450. And yeah, you can just get to the lake, pump that thing up, put a little outboard on it, and just kind of just putt around. You don't have to. I mean, it's not going to be like a 15 horsepower. It's going to be you put something really small in there. Even a little electric outboard is kind of cool. And then if you want to row, you can still put some oars on and still row with that as well.
Yep, exactly. Let's see, catamaran. Oh, catamarans are nice.
Yeah, I don't have the patience for catamaran. I don't have the patience for sailboats. I'm an impatient person.
So my best sailing experience ever, and I've been on multiple different sailboats, is I was back in California and I got invited to go on this square rigger sailboat called the Royalist. And it was this pirate ship, and it had cannons, real cannons, and a swivel gun. So we were like leaving the San Francisco Bay and going up to Drake's Harbor, and firing cannons off at tourist ships, of course not loaded. And it was just absolutely spectacular. I had the absolute best time in the whole world. Really, really enjoyed that. Yeah, if you ever get an opportunity to go onto like a pirate ship, a square rigger, do it.
I was on one in Mexico. It was kind of like that. It's kind of like a dinner cruise, and they'd go out. You'd go out and yeah, they'd set off the cannons and stuff like that. It's do almost like a little show for everybody, and then stop and you'd get food, and then they'd go around a little bit and go set off the cannons again. And those things are really fun. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, so I recommend kayaks, canoes, If you're going to do something and you don't have a lot of space, the inflatables are really the way to go. So they have inflatable like paddle boards that are
They
very,
do.
very
Yeah.
firm. And people are like, oh, that doesn't make any. No, they work really well. But what's fantastic about them is that they fold up and then go in the trunk of your car. So it's for storage reasons, it's fantastic. But do yourself a favor. If you're going to do like an inflatable boat of any type, wipe it down with a towel before you put it away, because the next time you bring it out, you're going to have that smell of mildew and mold.
I was going to say, it's going to smell
happy.
like the tents, the Boy Scout tents that we talked
that we talked
about a month ago.
Well, and that will deteriorate the plastic, so you'll have a better chance of either having a ruined boat or one that has that has small holes and you have to patch it.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing to think about is a patch kit. If you're gonna have an inflatable, have a patch kit.
Oh my God, yes.
Because it's one of those things of it's not an if, it's a when. You're gonna get because we had a little inflatable. We haven't had it in a while. That we used to go. There's a reservoir that's only like a couple miles. I can actually see it from my house. That we used to just go out and just kind of drift around in, and but yeah, you're gonna get a hole, and trust me, I've had a couple of patches in that thing before finally I was just like, yeah, we're done with this thing.
Very cool. All right, we got about 4 minutes left. Jason, if you could buy one boat, if you wanted to have a boat and you wanted one and only one for the rest of your life, what would you get? Silence.
That's a tough one because I'm thinking through. If I had the money to keep it fed, I think I'd like a Baja, one of the big Bajas. That it could, just because it'd be a lot of fun. The answer thing is keeping it fed. Those things typically have like 454s in them, or dual 350s in them. And I had a boat in Maryland. It was a 23-foot boat that had a 454 with dual quads in it, and man, that thing passed everything but a gas pier. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, I think I'd want one of the Bajas.
So mine's simple. I want top of the line, high end, fully loaded bass boat. Because I'm a bass fishing fanatic, and if I could have like the top of the line, best thing, has all the electronics and gear I need, I would be content. I'd be absolutely content.
For me, coming in a close second would be a party boat, the catamaran motorized with nice flat deck on it, because I think about that. You could do just about anything behind us. I've actually seen people like go water skiing behind them.
Oh yeah,
So,
the pontoon boats, they can go pretty darn
the pontoons.
Yeah,
and I think I might go with one of those instead of the Baja, because I think it'd be cool because you go fishing off of it. You got a big deck. They're very stable. Yeah, you can go camping. They're very stable. Yeah, I think I might do that. That'd be a lot of fun.
There you go. All right. What about our audience here? Leave a comment and let us know what you would want boat-wise. And if you got good stories, let us know. That would be awesome. We'll be checking consistently. Fishing trawlers come up and down the shoreline. Yep.
There you go.
Love fishing. Yeah, the fishing trawlers are fun. So here's our last minute plug. I am Rob Lupo from Lupo Outdoors. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. This is my second YouTube channel. My other one's already monetized, but I'm trying to grow this channel. This is all my fun hobbies, all my outdoor activities. And Jason?
I am Jason with the Rogue Banshee. Most of the people here probably are already subscribed, but definitely go check out the YouTube channel, because on top of this, I also have the podcast, which is coming out on Sunday. I release those on Sundays, so yeah, definitely go check it out. And I got a bunch of content, and definitely make sure you check out Lupo Outdoors too. Rob's really pissed at me because I got him to create a second channel, and now he's going down with the ship because he bit hard on that one. And
I mean, I was working hard on my first channel, and then all of a sudden he convinced me to set up the second channel, and it's growing like a weed. I'm really happy with it, but it now allows me to express myself with things that aren't appropriate for my first channel. My first channel is The Orlando Wizard, and it focuses on theme parks and things to do in Orlando. And it's a lot of fun. I do a lot of stuff at Star Wars Land, in Batu, but all my fun stuff I can't put on that channel. So all my fun stuff's on Lupo Outdoors.
So next week, what's the show next week on?
What did we decide? We talked about
was it the pros and cons of trade shows?
Pros and cons of trade shows. Is it worth going to a gun show? Is it worth going to a fishing show? It's different now than it used to be. So join us next week, and we're going to give you the pros and cons of the trade shows. Are they worth going to? And if so, how should you do it correctly?
There you go.
I'm Lupo Outdoors.
Thanks everybody for joining us.
And that's the Rogue Banshee. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.